Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the COVID-19 Business Support Center from Enterprise Lab. I hope you're well and surviving under this lockdown in the UK. Another 3 weeks, weather's glorious. Hope you've had a brilliant weekend. We've got another 3 weeks of this, and so we are happy to be back giving more and more sort of advice, guidance, tips, having more and more experts on sharing their knowledge and expertise with you guys. So today and this week, we have a focus on mindset, leadership, and peak performance. Last week, we were talking about digitization, disruption, and high performance. It's now kind of around this whole thing around the inner conversations, the mindset. And alongside me, I have my resident expert, Piers. Piers, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, thanks, Kat. Yep, good morning to you, and good morning to Rag as well.
Good.
Good morning, guys.
And alongside Piers today, our guest expert is Raghav Parkash. How are you, Raghav?
Very well. I'm envious of you guys. You're sporting the COVID look much better than I am. A lot more scruffy in the beard, and yeah.
Looks to be deceiving.
I don't necessarily need a hairdresser, you see, so I can do mine at home. So this is why I'm probably blessed right now. I think everyone else is probably can't wait for lockdown to release so they can get to the hairdressers, the barbers, and stuff like that. But you're still looking very good, Rag. You're looking very, very good considering. Oh, how's lockdown been for you?
Yeah, for me, it's with what I do, I'm very fortunate. It's been almost business as usual in the sense that with coaching, I do what I do online and offline. So I'm very fortunate with what I do. And one beneficial thing is just giving me more time to slow down and reevaluate some of the things in my business. And that's what I'm finding with a lot of people that I'm working with, that with the slowdown, it's giving them the space just to reflect about their business and is the current setup working for them? And so going into a world beyond COVID, it's just given me so many ideas about what my life and business will look like, and even for my clients. So a lot of great things have come out of this for me. Of course, it hasn't been easy, but
no,
it's been a good set of learning.
No, I think it's quite important that you kind of raised all of that thing about taking a little bit of time back, reflecting on yourself, etc., and being able to get out there. I mean, I think we've been now in this kind of situation for a number of weeks now. We've still got a number more weeks. There's a little bit of uncertainty whether we are going to be coming out after those 3 weeks, come sort of 7th May, etc. And I think the whole context of now being able to engage back into peak performance while you're in a lockdown is something that should be discussed quite openly today. And right now, I think there's a lot of business owners who are juggling not just their businesses and the uncertainty of their business running, but also homeschooling and having being in a crowded space, etc. at home. The whole environment and situation has changed. And Piers and I have talked about this before, about getting into routines and getting dressed for work and getting into that kind of mindset and setting yourself out in like an office space, etc. But you must be having some sort of challenges right now working with your clients. I mean, what are the typical things your clients are saying to you right now around sort of their ability to maintain that kind of peak performance whilst they're kind of, I guess, trapped in the confines of the four walls of their homes, really? What's happening right now?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest is the uncertainty we're experiencing, and not uncertainty in loose terms, because I'm sure you agree with this, but I believe, and I love the quote by Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, that entrepreneurship is like jumping off a cliff and building your plane on the way down. Now, when we talk about uncertainty, I've always had uncertainty. Like, am I doing something wrong? That I've never, as an entrepreneur, been able to see the way ahead. And I've learned to be okay with uncertainty. But what I think we're going through, and a lot of clients are going through, isn't just uncertainty, but even more heightened uncertainty, in the sense that, I've worked with a couple of personal trainers and their businesses have really been smashed because they haven't set up an online business model just yet. So some of them are doing that, where you're looking at a number of people whose current day-to-day systems and processes and livelihoods have been massively disrupted to the point that it's almost starting again from scratch and looking at what do you do now? Now, for some people, it literally is rebuilding and revamping their business model. For others, as you said, It's doing the doable, which is knowing the coronavirus, it's a temporary phase we're in. So it's how can you buy this time and do what you can in your business to navigate this and build for the world once you come out of the coronavirus. So it's mainly the psychological element of being hit with something that's so unexpected. It's learning to navigate this as well as we can.
That's it's spot on in terms of the whole thing about navigation. But I think there is this sense of people feeling lost inside, and I'm not going to say it's ego, but there is this air of not procrastination either, but there's something that's kind of holds people back from really kind of opening up and saying, yeah, I do feel lost and I am really anxious. And this is building up and it's venting up really quite a lot, because we're in a pressure tin, right now. I mean, let's take the media to one side. Let's take the situation. There's this whole financial pressure stuff. We're not talking about finances today, in terms of financial solutions and stuff. All these different elements are kind of ingredients to what we call a pressure tin of something that could implode or explode very, very quickly. What kind of things are you recommending to your guys? Because you mentioned it right at the top of the conversation. Taking some time, stepping back, and reassessing things. How do people do that?
So I think you made some really great points, Ketan. I think one of the best things to do right now is, as we said, with slowing down. Slowing down doesn't mean just sitting on the sofa watching Netflix.
Yeah.
What I mean by slowing down is actually taking time for yourself and defining what does success look like to you during this time. Because I've seen on social media, there's a lot of bashing going on about what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing offline. Yeah. How you should and shouldn't be living your life. And it's probably the most unhelpful thing to do, give people advice online about what they should be doing in this time, because it varies from person to person. I know people that have just used this time as a holiday and they felt, well, things are slowing down. Business is going to pick up. Let me just relax and switch off, be with the family. If that's what you want to do, rock and roll. If there's things that really make sense to you in your business that you can do during this time, great. Like, success is different from person to person. So when we talk about slowing down, it's one of the keys of peak performance is shutting yourself away from the distraction and noise. There's so much advice, so much what people think they should do, and so much you have to pivot this, pivot that. Yes, but how does this look like for you right now? What would success look like? What would you like to gain during this time? What is it you can do in your business, in your life? And what would, just a couple of steps forward now into the next few weeks, what would that look like for you? So it's defining that, having a crystal clear vision, and then building in some steps and strategies and habits and routines, as we spoke about Piers, that can really help. But it's really coming away from the mass noise and the hysteria and just getting clear about what you need right now, because success is such a personal journey. And just because we're in the coronavirus, that doesn't mean things have changed.
I mean, okay, so our environment's changed slightly, and we have to adapt to it. To a certain extent, that's what he says. I mean, Piers, you've talked always about the fact that you get out first thing in the morning, you go for long bike rides, and that kind of freshens you up, and it gives you this, I guess, focus for the day. It's not like you're not just going out there for a cycle so you can have an impact week. You do it you build this into your routine but what is that doing to allow you to sort of stay at your peak for the day? And is there a potential for you to actually run at that peak for the whole day? Because I think there's an expectation that one feels that, if I'm going to be at peak performance, I've got to be able to be at my best all day, every day.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things to say here. I think peak performance depends on what you're dealing with, because at the moment we're dealing with a combination of home life, children, schooling, work, money. There's a whole different range of things going on in our lives. Yeah. So it's hard to say I'm always at peak performance, because I'm not. There are times where, peak performance dips in certain areas depending on the circumstances I'm in. But it's interesting. I just want to come back to the point that Rag raised right at the beginning, which is, this thing about uncertainty, which is human beings, generally speaking, like predictability. And that's the only way you can stay out of any form of trauma, is to have things that are predictable. But of course, when that's taken away and we're moved into this period of uncertainty, it comes right the way down to our basic needs. So if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, the first two is physiological and safety. The physiological needs, they are being tested because people are dying. That is a very fundamental, basic right of humans.
Mm.
But probably more relevant to most people is the safety that we don't feel at the moment, because everything's unpredictable, everything's up in the air.
Mm.
So it's very hard to say, peak performance, I can do that just by saying I'm going to be in the zone. I think what I try and do is I'm looking at, we've talked before about this, but I look at self-regulation. And for me, sort of being self-regulated is really around sort of three things. I like threes anyway. In fact, I got a new quote for you, Ket. I like a quote. This is a new one I've done, which is, opinions are believed by fools, but can deliver the guidance for the wise.
Opinions are believed by the fools, but can provide guidance for the wise.
Which is that variation on the rules are there for the obedience of fools and the guidance of the wise. But that's my new quote. So I don't know, I thought you'd like that one. But, go back to what I was saying about self-regulating. I think first and foremost, it's worth saying that, not everything you do is going to be liked by everyone. So if you're a leader in your own business, you're going to take tough decisions and you're going to piss a few people off. But that's okay, because you have to do that. But fundamentally, you've got to self-regulate yourself with your emotions, behaviors, and thoughts. Those are the three key things to keep those in check. So what I do is I try and figure out, well, what can I control, what I can't control. I can't control the media, I can't control the virus. There's lots of things I can't control. But what I can control is my attitude and the way I think about things. So, it's that fight or flight principle. So I find my physiological state is very important to me. So I get the endorphins going by getting up in the morning, getting on a bike, and I'm out there, loving the fresh air. I come back with a real sense of a bit of a high, and that's how I start my day. Now that doesn't work for everyone. People have different things and different ways to deal with it. But that's my kind of thing. Firstly, I just figure out how to self-regulate yourself. It's about your thoughts, behaviors, and emotions.
I mean, it's interesting. You kind of come at it from this whole thing of getting out to come back in. You go out, you're getting out there, you've got fresh air, you're focused on a ride, and it allows you to clear your head and become really kind of focused into what you want to do once you get back.
Yep.
For me, I'm kind of the other way around. I need to be busy, I need to be active, I need to be doing something. I've kind of all of a sudden try to incorporate more and more complexity of projects just to keep things going. And for me, I wouldn't say I'm at my peak right now, but my peak performance comes on the fact of still being active on something. So whilst I may not be physically active, I'm very mentally active.
Well, that's a really good point. Rag, I'm sure you'll back this up, but if you look at sort of peak performance in mind, body, and spirit, some people work physically and that sort of drives their mental state. Some people don't. Some people work mentally. So you're the sort of person that requires peak performance by getting your brain active. You like a busy mind, and the brain is a muscle. It's no different to a bicep. It's just a different type of muscle you're exercising.
Yeah.
And also the spirituality side. Everyone believes in karma and things happening for a reason. Create a peak state of spirituality as well. Drive your beliefs home. I'm a great believer in perpetual optimism. It's a force multiplier. If you are optimistic, that sort of positivity will engage and draw in and attract other positivity. So, being optimistic for me is I get that from a physical sense and actually a mental sense where I love being brain busy because it just, but I'm still fried at the end of the day. But that's a good sign for me.
And that's a great point to come back in, Rag. Signs, obviously people right now are probably listening to webinars like this or reading stuff or watching other videos, etc. And people are telling them, this is what you got to do, this is how you could do it. You mentioned earlier about social media and the do's and don'ts, and you could and you couldn't. How important is it that people are listening to their bodies in terms of how they're accepting different changes? Peak performance and all of this is not just about doing things the way you used to do them continuously. And if you change something and it's not working, what's the kind of advice you have for people who are kind of, I guess, searching out there for an answer rather than actually listening to themselves really right now?
Yeah, just some really great points, and to build nicely on what you guys have discussed. When we think about peak performance, I mean, my definition is just getting more out of yourself and your life, and that's the basic premise for me.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at someone that's trying to figure out what comes next and what their purpose is next and what they're to do, well, peak performance in this sense is giving yourself what you need in order to uncover that.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes putting lots of pressure on yourself just doesn't help. It doesn't help with creativity. It doesn't help with focus. It doesn't help with figuring things out. So in this sense, it just helps to recognize sometimes things do take time. Like the figuring things out, we can try and put steps and strategies, but the other side of what we've spoken about is everyone's going to be going through something different. So it's actually understanding the principle behind self-kindness and self-compassion and giving yourself the space and time, because it's not an easy time at all. And what I'd point someone to who is trying to figure out what comes next, reminds me of this great Steve Jobs quote. I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs. And, he often said that, we can't connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect the dots looking backward. So you've just got to trust in something that the dots will connect. And this is what, Piers spoke about with the spiritual principles and optimism, that if we give ourselves time and space, if we don't have the answers right now, and if you're someone that's thinking, what do I do next? Give yourself some time, throw yourself into the things you like doing, the things that look possible. But with time, we can naturally figure things out. We're survival beings. We're built to be creative. We're built to come up with solutions. We're built to adapt to change, whether it's business, whether it's life. This moment we've gone through now, it's uncertainty, but in the sense we've always dealt with uncertainty. Like Simon Sinek talks about this. He says that we're in a new phase, but we're always dealing with uncertainty. So this challenge you've got right now, you've had hundreds of these in your lifetime. You've had so many moments where you've been up against the wall and you thought, how am I going to get out of this? This isn't the first. This is one of 100. So if we see this and how the dots connect, right now things look uncertain. But even out of the coronavirus, people had uncertainty. But like this phase, this feeling, it's like a constant. You're going to go up against in the future so many more times we feel like this. But what is true, what remains the same is that we can figure things out. So just give yourself some time.
I mean, Raghav, it's a really good point you raised there about, and I think for me that the sort of one guarantee thing you have in life is you can choose your attitude. And you can choose to do how you wish to think about something. Now, some of that comes naturally to positive people, some of it doesn't. If you're not naturally disposed to think positively about things and you're a bit of a pessimist, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. That's just your lens and the way you want to view the world. But that is the one thing we do have at the moment, is you do have a choice and you can choose how do you want to think about things. And, somebody once said, you are the sum of your thinking, which is absolutely true. So, and I think that's possibly why, the world is so multifaceted with so many different people. This is where collaboration is important and connection is important. So you can learn, you can bounce ideas, you can hear those opinions, and they can shape your life. In terms of coaching, why people like myself and Michael and Rag and yourself, that's why we exist. We're there to coach and help people. And I do genuinely believe I had some really nice feedback from some of the webinars we've had where people are saying they're learning things, something new. And that's great, because not everybody has the self inertia to get up and do these things. If, I'm an entrepreneur, we're all entrepreneurs here, so it's quite easy for us to think about this. But for somebody who is not an entrepreneur, it's really difficult because it doesn't come naturally.
Yeah, I kind of add to the fact that I often say that, clarity only comes from confusion. So in order to be clear on something, you have to have a state of confusion or chaos around you first. If you think of the word sanity and insanity, so sanity is within insanity. So you've got to be insane before you can become sane to that extent. And there are several observations that I've made over the last couple of weeks, which are quite interesting and changes of people's behaviors, the perceptions, and obviously that goes to your attitude and then attitude towards your actions and stuff as such. Whilst there is this whole fear about the pandemic and what's going on and are we ever going to get back to normal and my business or whatever, my job or whatever it needs to be, in that confusion, people are finding new paths. There are some that are starting to mobilize and create their own voluntary kind of initiatives and projects. Others are now starting to do more kind of crowdfunding, raising. Some people are becoming better homeschoolers or teachers to their kids. Others are becoming a lot more creative. People like me who hate DIY are actually becoming very good at it. In fact,
are you still bragging about your shed again?
Not my shed, no. Actually, the other day I mounted my TV onto the wall and stuff like this. So, actually, I did it, and then I shared it with some of my family members, and they go, "Oh, did you get the builder to come round and do it?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? I did it myself," and then so what I guess I'm getting to here is that there is an opportunity here in this confusion of things to actually find not just new things, but rebirth certain things that you do, the connections to people that perhaps in your family that you weren't really that well connected to, and I think that has a positive impact in your ability to start loving yourself again, if that makes sense. And I think you came to that first, Raghav, about this whole self-care, self-love, self-identification. You've got to believe yourself, love yourself, and appreciate yourself in every kind of element before you can really get out there and start to make an impact anywhere else, correct?
No, absolutely. And self-love, it comes in different forms. And one thing you might have seen, Piers, me and Ketan have got a secret love. That is food. Like if I wasn't a coach, wanted to do stuff in politics, or do for coaching, I would want to be a chef. And I love seeing Ketan express that through his Facebook lives with food and the pictures he keeps putting up, which makes my mouth salivate and distract me from coaching and all that stuff. But
I'm a foodie too as well.
Yeah. But it's just during this time, it's I just love looking at what helps people drive performance, what helps people drive success. And if you look at that at any level, even if you look at Tiger Woods right now, what's contributed towards his success, he talks about, isn't actually training as hard. It's doing the essentials, but spending time with his family. Like his priorities have changed. Yep. Now, sure, he's at a different stage in his career, but he talks about the essentials, and taking time off is what he needs to help him recharge and come back into the game and actually do what's important to him in his personal life. So his professional life and his career is thriving.
I think it's a fascinating area. I talk a lot about people's beliefs, and your belief is something that is so, it's built into you, and you're conditioned like that because of your environment. And some of it is nature. You're born that way as well. And the easiest way to assess your beliefs about something is to ask what's important to you in something. Yeah. So, for example, in business, if you said, what's important to me in business? If the answer is just making money, or client relationships, that starts to define my beliefs about business. Yeah. And the same with my health. What's important to me to be healthy? It might be having a trim, lean body. It could be having a balanced mind. But again, if you ask what's important, it will figure out what your belief system is. And I think that's probably the starting point for sort of building peak performance, is to work out and reinforce your personal beliefs. Don't let people cross your beliefs. If you believe in a certain way, that's absolutely fine. Whatever that might be, that's what you build on, and that's how your life then starts to go forward. So you've got a building block.
Okay, let's be a little bit. Let's play a bit of devil's advocate here. It's great. I'm in this kind of era of positivity and self-love and all this, but I'm confined to four walls right now. I'm with my loved ones who are my loved ones, but we're not used to being around each other all the time like this. And I'm not talking about me. I'm just talking about generally everyone. We're not used to, there are pockets of time where the kids go to school, or your partner goes to work, or whatever it is. And you're now under each other's feet. You're kind of in this kind of environment. Raghav, how do you kind of block out the negative stuff if you're kind of such a positive, or is it a situation that you just got to keep pushing your positivity out to help that things change? Because sometimes it could be that you're stuck in a house with someone who's just completely given up on things, and that kind of brings the whole environment down. Or you could be in a house where someone has to self-isolate right now because they've had COVID-19 or got COVID-19, and they have to be stuck in a room, and they've got to be away from you, all this kind of stuff. So when we talk about this kind of self-belief, inner love, and all this kind of stuff, what can one do if they're stuck in an environment where the environment around them doesn't have any of that, and it's just them alone?
Sure. Awesome. So there's two angles of this. So I'll come to the COVID situation in a second. In terms of when you're with your loved ones, one of the best things we can do is, we're in an environment now, I'm sure you're running a business from home, and you get your wonderful kids and family, and it's very crazy. Like, I learned a great lesson from my other half a few days ago. She said, Rag, look, when things are back to normal, is it okay if we have separate spaces, but sometimes we work a little bit apart so I can channel my creativity? She says, I love you, but I thought, beautiful, of course. That it's just, we can put certain boundaries in place to say to our loved ones, look, I really love you, but I just can have some time to myself to channel my creativity, to focus. I'm like that. I need to put my headphones in, have my space, so I can do my best creative work. So that's absolutely okay. So it's thinking about what you need and your standards and your own habits, and bringing that to your loved ones, having very open conversations. So they're on the same page with you. The other side of what if, there's a little bit of, let's say, negativity, and, people are struggling because of the virus. Well, one of the things for me that really helps through greater positivity is something called optimism. So why sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of positive thinking is as well, I'm really worried about something that is made up, which is my fear. So let me battle it with something that's more made up, which is a made up scenario. When in fact, I think, let's come back to what's true, which is the coronavirus is temporary. Right now, you're okay. Right now, you're giving yourself time to recover. Like, looking at what are the constants that when we're not caught up in our thinking, what stays the same? Like, for example, a trader might be annoyed that the market's crashed. Well, look, the market's going to pick up. It's a constant. And that is true. So when we just slow down, we come back to what's actually true right now. What are the doables? What's in our control? Then we're working with things that are more tangible. We're working with things that are more true. So of course, that's the best we can do. What's in our influence and control. So that's what I'd say during times of climate and during times of struggle. It's okay to feel fear. It's our human instincts, but it's just, being okay with that as well.
So Ken, do you remember, one of the very early webinars that we did, I often talk about the fact that, it's being positive, being optimistic is fine, but the very first thing one should do is be realistic, and never deny reality. I use that expression, if you're looking east for a sunset, no matter how positive you are, you're never going to find it. Okay, so you've got to be real about things. It's the very first thing, and I've advised anyone I'm speaking to about, and again, opinions and advice again, but is just take stock of your circumstances. Look at the reality of where you're at. And some things you can do, some things you can't do. As Rag said earlier, as a species, we are adaptive. We will adapt and we will overcome. And that's about developing the mental framework to create optimism, which is more of a longer term solutions. I'm very optimistic about business in the future. I'm not so positive about business in the short term, but I'm going to develop a mindset of optimism, and I'm going to choose to lean into it. Now that's something I do, and I have to work at that. But that's what we should be doing, is look at your reality. Okay, and if you are in a home where you've got a loved one in isolation in a separate bedroom, or you're dealing with a loss of a loved one, you've got grief in the house. Don't expect yourself to be bouncing and firing all cylinders. It's not going to happen. That's the reality of your circumstance. And time is the sort of measure for that, to get through this. Do you put yourself in a circumstance where you can become peak performing? But each to their own, because everyone behind closed doors is going through very, very different experiences.
Absolutely.
Rag, I'm sure, is struggling with the fact that he hasn't seen his wife for many weeks. That's a tough environment to be in. I'm the same. My children don't live with me, so I haven't seen my children for weeks. So that's a tough thing to deal with. Everyone's got their own challenges here. So just acknowledge your reality with the first thing. And I'm a great believer. Write stuff down. I take notes when I hear things, and I'm always looking to write things down. And it gives me some context around things. So, for anyone right now who's going through this sort of turmoil in their mind and all this uncertainty still, the reason possibly is because we've been in lockdown for 4 weeks now. And if you haven't yet figured out your own framework, that's why you're still in this terrible uncertainty period. It'll still be uncertain, but just help reframe yourself. Sit down and write down some thoughts. Write down some notes around what's going on in your life right now. There's a wonderful thing about the wheel of life. Look at your health, your finance, your family, your friends, your career, all of these things, and score them on a 1 to 10. Not everything's going to be 10, not everything's going to be 1.
Yeah.
Just prioritize the things that are, causing you stress and anxiety, and then set a framework around that as to what you can then start to work on.
But this situation that we find ourselves in, it's almost forcing us to slow down and think, because we can't go anywhere. At the end of the day, when you're in your normal day-to-day life, as it was before COVID-19 kind of hit. Everyone's kind of moving at 100 miles an hour. They've got so many different things going on, and not to say that they haven't thought about these things in the past. They just perhaps not given themselves the time to really kind of dive deep into these kind of things. But now we kind of we're sat where we can't keep ourselves busy forever. So obviously these thoughts come into your mind. Is it a case that people need to embrace this now, whether they like it or not, that this is going to happen to them, and they have to have conversations with themselves, I guess? Journal. I think journaling, as you mentioned just now, Piers, is amazing, because it's not just that you're taking notes. I think, Raghav, you'll probably agree with this. It's a form of action that allows you to absorb, understand, empathize with everything that you've been thinking about, and emotionally, by writing it out, you're actually confirming it, I guess, to a certain extent.
Okay, just on the point you raised there about this is a time to slow down. Okay, I haven't slowed down. no, but here what I mean by that is I've just reprioritized where I put my 100% energy in. Okay, it's I'm in my four walls. For some people, that is spending more time, more time and being more energetic around gaming or watching TV, or doing cooking, or doing DIY.
Yeah.
You're still doing the same amount of energy. All of us have got 24 hours in a day. We all breathe. So we all sleep. You still use that same level of energy going at the same rate, but you're just focusing in different areas. And I said to my kids that if they spend as much time on gaming and watching YouTube videos as they did on getting into a career now, it's exactly the same amount of energy and effort. It's just focus in different areas. So it's all about the choice as to where you want to put your energies. Right now, you're given an opportunity where you have choice. What we have is a different time environment. Sitting inside of four walls, you're not frantically running around, jumping on buses and trains and going to meetings. You've got time. Whereas Rag says, you get that sort of quiet time to recalibrate, reframe, and then think about where you want to put your energy. It's the same amount of energy. It's just some of it's just idling. And I just choose to direct mine there or direct it there.
Yeah, and just to build on that, a study that I've been looking at recently, and it's a great read, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I think it's a fantastic read. And what he talks about is that so many of us today, even at an executive level, director level, CEO level, parent level, we have a huge misunderstanding about essentialism and priorities. Today, we have the word priorities, and he says it's wrong. When we first started, there was only priority. So today, people, even in corporate and offices, will go into meetings and they'll have a conversation about what the top 12 priorities are, which doesn't make sense. It's so counterintuitive. Where we actually perform at our best is, and this is what I call slowing down. So it's similar to Piers, but slowing down for me doesn't mean switching off. It means just letting the noise out and thinking what right now is important. You see, if you're a sports person, they understand this to the T, right? Pardon the pun, next shot. Or you're a Liverpool fan, I think, Ketan, if I'm correct. Jurgen Klopp said this when the reporters said, you guys are going to win the league. You must feel amazing. He goes, no, I've told the team one game at a time. So we can channel our energy and focus on where we need to be moment to moment. This is where we're effective. So you can call it mindfulness for performance. You can, whatever word you use, we're all pointing in the same direction, which is now less is more. And what you'll find is if you get rid of all the noise, there will be only 2 or 3 things, probably max, that are the most essential, that if you got rid of everything else, your heightened performance would come out. You'd have better focus on whether it's finances, better focus on thriving, your business, if you can work on your business, or even if you're going to be with your family, it's better to really spend that time just being with your family, 10 out of 10, with full presence. So it's just coming back to what's actually essential.
And just again to follow on to that, I think I've just written down something here, which is desire and motivation. I think an awful lot of us are probably sitting in our homes thinking, I know what I need to do, but I'm just not doing it, which is a lack of motivation. And without getting into too much of the psychology bit, apart from the fact that I don't really know too much about this, but so I'm not going to speak about it. But in the fight or flight response, when you are depressed, or dealing with a trauma, you tend to go quiet, you decompress into yourself. So we hear about people who just don't want to get out of bed, pull the covers over their head and just go, la, 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 I don't care. That is a fairly typical response. So if you know the things that you've got to do, then you've got to try and figure out some techniques and ideas to drive the desire for it, to make it important to you, and then develop the motivation to actually take action and do something. Because we all know we have to-do lists, which are perpetual, and they're always full of things, and we getting round to it and so on. It's just about taking action, but that's driven by motivation, which is driven by desire. So how do you create that desire in yourself to do it?
Well, one thing I find, Piers, is that within performance, and this is what I see with motivation. When I do something such as, I'll use a very simple example. I don't need motivation to have a shower, to watch Netflix, to eat my lunch, we do so many things that make sense to us without the need for motivation. So what I find when it's things such as business, and some might say, well, business is more important, whatever, we're actually getting in our own way through self-sabotage versus actually needing motivation, if that makes sense. So I think we're naturally motivated people until we get in the way of our own performance with things like, well, I could do business, this thing in my business, but it's going to take too much time or whatever. That's a story we're telling ourselves. That's why you're not motivated. So it's not a case that we need to juice ourselves up. It's just a misunderstanding of how our thinking works. And what I find with every entrepreneur I coach that says, Rag, I'm not motivated. After a couple of conversations, it turns out that they're really scared that something's going to fail. If you're scared something's going to fail and you feel it's true, you're thinking, you really believe you're thinking, why would you want to do something if you think it's going to fail? So it's almost getting in the way. And it's just understanding, well, how are you stopping yourself? And that creates motivation.
Yes, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, it's, and it comes down to that sort of, the sum of your thinking. If you think you can't do something, you can't. And if you think you can, you can. So it's developing that mindset that just gives you the chance to be motivated, not self-sabotage yourself through your limiting beliefs, which is, we see that time and time again. And we've all got it. There's no such thing as what a person who's always at 100% peak performance achieving and building and growing. There are many examples of great people out there that we all aspire to. We look at the Bransons and the Elon Musks of this world and the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, but that's not most people's reality.
No.
It's important to say, yep, it can be done, but you've got to look at the sacrifice you've got to put into that. For most people who want a sort of balanced life where you've got time for friends and family and work and health and so on, you can't put all your energies into one thing. So I think, you were saying earlier, Rag, about, setting up your priorities and focusing on one priority, not the priorities. Just
on top of that, I was going to say, when we think about Elon Musk and Richard Branson, I don't think it's even a helpful comparison for other people because we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Every single person I coach at a very high level, for some reason, we forget other people are human. And I say this because this is what I used to go through. And I've had people that are very successful at what they do. When they start talking to me, they lean forward, they come really close and say, Rag, I got to tell you something. The reason I want to work with you is I get to tell you the stuff I don't want other people to know about me. That's what coaching is. It's not even about performance. They've got all these things, but they have to act like they've got their life together for the social media stuff. So during this time, peak performance is up and down. It's volatile. It's like the life of a trader. You've got to understand the cycles. You can't ever have a linear, everything is, and this is why I don't believe in any coaches or gurus that say they always have things together, they're always confident. I don't believe in it. I like to understand someone that knows life is a bit of a roller coaster. For Richard Branson, he invests in his own coaches, in his own therapists. He does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So it's just important during this time to actually be human as well. Recognize you won't have everything together.
So I suppose the word that comes into mind just listening to you both talk is perfection. This is the thing. I think, when you talked about, Raghav, you talked about the fear of failure, towards particular goals. And if you think about the word peak in performance, most people kind of have these perfect goals set into their head. They have this thing that this is where you've got to be at. It's got to be comparable to this, or it's going to be at this level here. When we work with people from a business performance perspective, there is as much fear of success as there is for failure, because they don't know what they're going to turn into if they become that successful at what they're doing. There is, this opportunity right now with the lockdown is people are going through a self-discovery, even unconsciously, even if they don't look at it from a face front. they're refinding their way to converse with people, or cook, or clean, or create, or whatever it is that they're doing. And I think there's an abundance of people worried that what will happen to me or to everything around me if this does work the way it would work. So there is this kind of almost this fear bound that's holding people back, as much as the fact that I shouldn't go down this route, because if I don't get to this certain stage, I'm going to fail. Isn't that people making a perfect Polaroid? They're trying to make this whole environment that, because what is success and what is failure in this? It's all marginal, right? At the end of the day, you take one step forward today, and you change one small thing about your life today. You change one small thing that you feel, the way you feel, or the way you react or respond or live. Isn't that not success already? Is that not?
Well, I think it's helped by defining what makes you happy. So if one of the purposes of life is, the pursuit of happiness, and if happiness to you is lots of money in the bank, that'll take you down one path. If happiness is just about being mindful, that'll take you down another path. There's all these different directions. So it's kind of just setting out what your happiness barometer is, if you like, and that will help you then, work towards that. Too often when people don't, and I'm not advocating necessarily goal setting per se, but I think having some idea of where you want to go and what you want to try and achieve has got to be, inherent in anything you do. Otherwise, where on earth do you know where you're going to get to? So I think, the pay it forward view is really important, which is just determine where you want to be. So look at this crisis now. Let's take an uneducated guess and say we're going to be out of this thing in 12 months. Okay, so we'll sit here, next year on the 21st of April, and we'll be through it. Okay, the world will be different, but we'll be through the COVID, and we'll be back to life as we know it. If that's your goal, work it back from that in terms of the things and the actions you can do to work towards that, to make you feel happy at that point. What's happiness look like for you on the 21st of April 2021? Because if you can visualize that, it's not necessarily about perfection. It's just about understanding the things that are going to try and make you happy. Whether that's being with loved ones again, whether it's having a child, whether it's moving house, whether it's being more successful in your business, having more money, more clients. Figure out those things and what it looks like, because visualization of the future is a really big thing. Muhammad Ali, for example, no great secret, but he always used to have a future history. So he would imagine himself getting into the ring as the champion of the world. And that's how he boxed. He boxed as if he was the champion. He could see that. So I think that visualization of, what a future goal looks like and a future circumstance looks like is a really good thing to have.
Raghav, I mean, what kind of, and we've almost been going an hour here. I want to make sure we get a load more kind of things in. What kind of small steps practical steps would you recommend to people out there who are thinking, or feeling this, or listening to us mamble on for the last 45 minutes or so about things, look, you know what, actually there is something in this, and I really want to kind of make these steps, but I don't know really quite how to make these steps forward. What's the first kind of 3 or 4 practical steps you would advise for people as they start to find or try to identify their route to peak performance?
Sure. So building on what Piers said, I would really come back to the conversation about essentialism. So during this time, what's actually really important to you? So if we just shut up the noise, shut up the distraction, shut up advice that maybe doesn't sit well with you, what is important to you during this time? What are the things you want to focus on? What do you want more of? What do you want to create during this time? So for me, and let's say my business, is shifted from, I was actually meant to be in Athens. I should have actually been coming back from Athens just a few days ago. So obviously that hasn't happened. I'm here in London, but the priorities have changed for my business, and I've got a sense of what would actually make a difference during this time. So I think it's, getting clear on that. And if it's, well, I'm just not sure what happens now. Well, okay, we're getting some clarity. That could be a priority. Seeing, well, what are the opportunities that lay ahead right now for me? So it's just getting clear on what's essential. The second thing, and I don't think we touched on this, but what could also be really great is actually having an accountability support group, a mastermind, someone that you speak to regularly other than, your other half in your family. Because as wonderful as they are, it's such a great system to have, just to check in with someone else that can give you a viewpoint from the outside, like from some fresh perspective. And, we spoke about boundaries. What could be a great idea is, at least once a week, you go away, have your own space, having a call with the accountability buddy, and just check in. What's working, what's not working. What are you noticing? Support each other. That's another great practical step. But, so I think those two just starting off are really important. And also, just give yourself time to prioritize the other things that are important outside of work. We're not going to get this time back. And, we spoke about balance, how peak performance isn't just all one thing, very black and white. Like, sure, have your essentials in, but do things that also fulfill you.
Really good. Really great stuff. Piers, anything to add to that?
Yeah, very much so. I think, the challenge with coaching peak performance is you need to get to understand the person you're dealing with, because it's a very personal thing. And in an event like this, which is an hour long, and we're talking and providing advice to people who we don't know, I don't know the context of their own world and what works and doesn't work for them. So I think there are sort of 5 things I'd say here. Firstly is try and contextualize your world. Okay, figure out what your world looks like. It might be bad, it might be good, but it's your world. The most important thing, I think, first and foremost, is to self-regulate your thinking and your behaviors and your emotions within the context of your own world. So whatever you're dealing with right now, forget the future. What you're dealing with right now is your world, and just make sure that you can manage and control your behaviors, your emotions, and the way you think about this. Okay, that'd be my first thing. I can't tell you how to do that, because that depends on you as a person. Always remember that the majority of what we worry about never actually happens. And, I say that to my children, 99% of what you worry about never happens, because we are, as creatures, we worry about this and we, panic, but it never actually happens. Okay. So feeding from that, the second thing is to sort of maintain an air of optimism. Okay. Which is exactly as, you said right at the beginning, Rag, we'll get over this. We've dealt with many pandemics. The human species has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. We've had everything thrown at it, from dinosaurs to whatever. We'll get through this. Okay. It'll be just another notch on the bedpost of life. Okay. So try and maintain some optimism. The world will still be round, the sun will still shine, and, people will come and go. The third thing is trying to develop something that's your motivation, something that drives your motivation to take action, because taking action is the most important thing. Sitting there idly doing nothing, you will achieve nothing. A person going nowhere normally gets there. So try and find something inside yourself to sort of develop that motivation. And perhaps the last thing which could help drive all of that is to set some goals for happiness, and fulfillment. What is it that's going to make you feel fulfilled? What's going to drive your success, towards that? What is that? What does it look like? So, pay forward the thinking of where you want to be in 12 months. And from that, you can then backfill some of the steps on the journey to get there.
Just one more thing, just to build on what Piers said, that just encapsulates it nicely. I think, based on the last few weeks, what's made the biggest impact for me is just remembering the nature of performance, which is performance is just one day at a time, one match at a time, one shot at a time, one conversation at a time, literally 1 hour at a time. So, wherever you are, whatever we're working on right now, if you want to get the more out of yourself, then sure, having a longer term view is great. Having your goals is great, but bring yourself back to just what right now can make the difference for you. Because it's better, let's say in the next few weeks, if you were to do something consistently every single day, that's much better than something that you do once in a while here and there in the week. It all adds up. It all comes together and creates success. So with anything, it's, what you do consistently and a couple of things that can make the difference, one day at a time.
Wow. I mean, and I love that. I love the whole moment to moment thing that you talked there. You both have brought so much context into something that could be so simply forgiven to be, it's all about how much time and commitment and focus I put into everything, and how I've got to be the best at everything that I'm doing all at the same time. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to just focus on one thing. It's okay to just, not worry about your business and be happy. I think the route to, the happiness side of things is so valuable. You guys have really brought this to this kind of dimension. So the last thing.
One tiny little thing I just want to say, just reminded me of something I mentioned to you on one of the previous webinars, which is If you do one small thing every day, make your bed.
Yes.
Okay? Because when you go to bed at night, at least you can say you did something that day. You know, nothing else. You're going to lay on the sofa, watch Netflix all day and just bummed out and whatever. But if you make your bed in the morning when you get out of it, you get back into it, you can say you've done something.
Well, it's even that. You could even say that you watch Netflix, so you still did something, right?
So bed watching, yeah, I get.
But okay, so one last statement that we put. So you give some practical steps. If you could just give 30, one sentence to someone out there right now, what will that sentence be? Rag, I'll come to you afterwards. Piers, I'm going to come to you first. What's that one statement?
Make your bed.
Make your bed.
No, I think the take one day at a time, but just remember that we're going to get through this and remain optimistic.
Amazing. And Rag, what's the one last statement that you want to leave?
Yes, just similar to Piers, that one day at a time, because this is something we've always, life has had its twists and turns, and what's always made the difference is one day at a time.
Yeah.
That's where we're the most impactful.
There you go. Have it there. Don't worry about another 3 weeks of lockdown. Just take one day at a time. One micro win every day is going to amount to amazing change and difference for you guys. So I'm gonna wrap it up here today. Raghav, thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to having you on with Alan soon.
Alan, yes.
So that's gonna be an interesting conversation. In fact, we've got Alan on this week. Later on, maybe tomorrow actually. So we're next up we have Piers and I talking about business leadership, which is going to follow on from this whole conversation around performance. So if you're watching this on the recorded version, go and check out the next one, which is on business leadership, where Piers and I are going to be talking about the performance of the mindset that it takes to lead in your business. We're following that up with the inner conversation that you would have with yourself. So inner leadership with Alan Clennion. What a guy. And then we've got Raghav coming back again in a week or two's time to talk around that kind of whole mindset, performance, leadership stuff again. We're wrapping up this week with Akash Vagela again, where we're going to be talking around fitness and nutrition hacks. So this is what you need to do to keep your body in shape and your taste buds flying as well. So I'm sure Raghav will be watching that one if it's something to do with food on there for sure.
Absolutely.
So gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate both our resident expert Piers for being a resident and coming on so often. Thank you very much for your pearls of wisdom there. And Raghav, absolutely amazing session. Really thank you for everything that you
Thank you indeed, guys.
Thank you so much.
We'll catch up again really soon, okay?
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.